Let me go straight to Sri Amitabh Kant. Of course, he doesn't need any introduction. He is the face of modern India for the last almost a decade now. So all of us, I know that very keen to hear him. So you will prefer coming here. So thank you, sir.
Mr. Pratap Singh, Mrs. Pratap Singh, Sujit, Manish, Mr. Singh, Mr. Pramod, distinguished guests, and all the friends of Mr. Pratap Singh, ladies and gentlemen. Let me at the outset first compliment Mr. Pratap Singh for a very multi-dimensional perspective in his book, India's Odyssey. I've always viewed him as a great marathon runner, as a good swimmer, as a great golfer, but he's demonstrated his great ability to have a visionary perspective, to look at both the developmental journey of India and the economic history through the eyes of a developmental expert. He's an outstanding tax person, as Mr. Pramod said, but obviously he's got into the wrong profession because he's a great writer, great sportsman, great developmental expert, all rolled into one. And rarely do you find a tax person from the income tax who has such a broad canvas and who has the visionary perspective to present the several transformations that are taking place in India in such an enlightening manner as he has done in India's Odyssey. Ladies and gentlemen, India's Odyssey is a remarkable book. It's remarkable because it brings out the developmental journey of India. In 1700, India had about 24% of the global GDP. By the time it became independent, its share in global GDP had slipped down to less than 5%. 200 years of colonialism had brought it down from about 25% to less than 5%. The British Raj was subsequently replaced by the Licensed Raj, and that in many ways led to the Hindu, what was termed by an economist, Professor Krishna Raj of Delhi School of Economics, as the Hindu rate of growth. Though Hinduism had nothing to do with economics, actually. But he felt that it will be very difficult for India to grow beyond rates of 3.5% to 4%. And then we entered into a period prior to 2014 when we were in the fragile five. And this was happening because we had a twin balance sheet problem. A balance sheet problem of both the corporate sector and of our financial institutions, the banks. We had a challenge on our fiscal deficit, we had a challenge on our current account deficit. But what we've done in a decade is to move from the fragile five to the top five. And this has happened because of the vast range of structural reforms that have been carried out. Firstly, the goods and services tax, which has replaced several taxes and has several cesses to have one tax across the country, which is totally digital, paperless, and has now demonstrated that the total number of taxpayers under GST has jumped up very substantially, more than doubled, but it's growing at rates of 18 to 20% month by month. And then we were able to bring a modern Insolvency Act, the IBC, we brought in the Real Estate Regulation Act, we reduced taxes for the corporate sector. The government gave away 1,45,000 to bring in a corporate tax regime which is probably the best in the world. And Then we focused on ease of doing business, and we scrapped a number of rules, regulation, procedures and paperwork. And India is the only country which has eliminated close to 1600 laws. So a huge focus on all these areas. The structural reforms have actually been followed by a massive amount of digitization. Because every Indian has a digital identity. And then between 2015 and 17, India opened up 550 million bank accounts. That is 55% of the bank accounts opened in the world. Every second bank account was opened in India. And at that point of time, only 18% of Indian women had a bank account. Today, 91% of Indian women have a bank account. So that's the story of financial inclusion. Because through a huge process, we linked up both the digital identity and the mobile number with the bank account. And then we all started doing fast payments. We use our mobile. Many of us, I've not been to a physical bank for over 4.5 years. I've not been to an ATM machine. I've not used my debit credit card. I use my mobile. And India does close to last year did close to about 130 billion fast payments in the world, which is about 46% of the real-time fast payments in the world. 46%. We did about 130 billion real-time fast payments, and the second was China with 22 billion. That was the difference. 130 billion and 22 billion. So from fast payments, you had a number of, you saw the Indian startup movement in 2016 being launched. We had 156 startups at that time. Today we have over about close to about 120,000 startups in India, close to about 125 unicorns. And many of them use this history of fast payments. Mobikwik, Pine Lab, all of them started providing credit on the go, on the mobile. And then you had a number of startups, many of them today, who started creating wealth creation through the stock market. And they took stock market to tier 2, tier 3 cities and rural areas. So you had Zerodha, Grow, Upstock. These are all young companies. They are controlling about 30% of the stock market today. And they started in 30 seconds you could do a digital stock market transaction on your mobile on the go. And then you had another set of young startups like GoDigit and Acco who started providing insurance policies. And when I was a young officer, it used to take me 6 months, 7 months to buy LIC insurance policies. So what has happened in India is that you can open a bank account in less than a minute, you can do a fast payment in 30 seconds, you can do a stock market transaction in less than 30 seconds, and you can buy an insurance policy in less than 1 minute. That is the transformational story of India through the digital public infrastructure. And actually, if you look at what has happened in the world in the last 2 decades, in the western part of the world, all technological innovations have happened through big tech. They've happened through Google, Apple, they've happened through Amazon, they've happened through Meta. And in China, they've happened because of Tencent and Alibaba. But all these big tech companies have taken the digital transaction history and your data and owned it as their own, and then used the power of artificial intelligence and machine learning. But in India's case, we created an alternative model of digital public infrastructure, which is open source, open API, is globally interoperable, but the data is owned by the citizen, and he gives actually a technological clearance when you are transacting to use that data for the purpose of that transaction, but the data ownership remains with the citizen. This has not happened anywhere else in the world. Not happened anywhere else in the world. And what India has demonstrated is that during the COVID period, we could provide 2.2 billion COVID vaccination. We could put money into the bank account of 800 million Indians. Instead of giving large packages, we could provide money straight into the bank accounts of 110 million women, and we could actually give in over 630 schemes of the government. We put money straight into the bank account of the beneficiary without any leakage. So India is radically transformed digitally. And the third big transformation that has happened in India is in terms of the vast amount of infrastructure that has been created in the last decade. We built about 40 million houses, which is more than the population of Australia. 40 million houses for our citizens. We have actually provided toilet for about 120 million Indians, which is more than the population of Germany. And we have provided piped water connection to 253 million Indians, which is more than the population of Brazil. That has been the size and scale of transformation. But we built about 92,000 kilometers of roads in India. That is about 15 times the radius of the earth. 15 times the radius, 15x the radius of the earth. Now, that is why the quality of the roads, the quality of our airports is today better than that in Europe. Ours is a young infrastructure, much better, and that is the spirit of trying to excel. And the other big thing that India has done is to really, not only has it used digital technology to leapfrog through the digital public infrastructure, but it has used the power to go green. And we've built over 187 gigawatt of renewable energy. We brought down the rate of renewable energy from about close to 22 rupees per kilowatt hour to less than close to about 2 rupees per kilowatt hour. We've provided clean cooking gas to over about 130 million women of India who used to use firewood to burn and spoil their health. And we've provided electricity to 30 million Indian houses. And now we are moving from just solar energy and using the power of solar energy because to crack water to produce green hydrogen, because we import about 180 billion worth of fossil fuel. And the challenge for India is that green hydrogen, which costs about $4.5 to $5 per kilowatt hour, should actually come down to $1 per kilowatt hour by 2030 through sheer size and scale. And the challenge for India is that by the time it becomes 100 in 2047, instead of being an importer of fossil fuel of 180 billion, we should be an exporter of clean energy through be the biggest producer of green hydrogen for domestic consumption, be the biggest manufacturer of electrolyzer, and be the biggest exporter of green hydrogen in its liquid form, ammonia, to the rest of the world. So ladies and gentlemen, I am a great believer that because of structural reforms, because of digitization, because of infrastructure creation, and because of the vast amount of work done to make India green, this is truly not only India's decade, but this is India's century. And this is India's century, then I think we'll face many challenges. No country will have a smooth path. There'll be many challenges. There'll be a challenge of improving your learning outcomes, health outcomes, your social indicators, your nutritional standards. There'll be a challenge of improving your agricultural productivity. There'll be a challenge of making India a manufacturing nation, which is very critical. And there'll be a challenge of doing sustainable urbanization. All these will be critical challenges. And many of these aspects of both growth, development, challenges are all dwelt at length by Mr. Pratap Singh in his book. He's also spoken about the story of Gurugram and how it has developed and evolved as a city and the challenges of urbanization. He has spoken on all key burning issues which confront India. He has written at length about both the developmental story as well as the big big challenges that India will be confronted with in the future, and what are the lessons to be learned from what we have done in the past. And therefore, India's Odyssey is a remarkable book. It's a remarkable book because it gives you a unique perspective on India's development, its growth, its challenges, its human resources. It's an amazing book because it looks not merely at the past, but it looks at both the present and the future. It's an amazing book because it's written through the perspective of a government officer who's not merely confined in a silo of a taxman, but has a multi-dimensional perspective of both a sportsman, a perspective of a developmental expert, as well as the perspective of a government official who wants India to grow and expand, and who wants India to become a super economic power. And therefore, what I like about this book is the positive attitude, and what I like about the book is his vision, and what I like about his book is a perspective which truly has faith and belief in the development story of India. So let me take this opportunity of complimenting Mr. Pratap Singh for a remarkable book. I wish it all success, I wish him all glory, and I wish him all progress in the years to come, and may this book become a remarkable success story. Thank you very much, Mr.